Good morning from a chilly but gorgeous Austin, Texas. My name is Sam. I'm honored that you would spend the next few minutes with me. Today I'm going to talk to you about red flags in the life of the unfaithful party. Today's video is for both the unfaithful and the betrayed. If you're unfaithful, ask yourself, do you keep running into some of these walls? Are these things happening in your life and you can't really understand why, but you just know it keeps happening? Maybe you're a betrayed, and this will kind of help you see, okay, look, I keep running into these walls in my partner's life. It's scaring me. Should I be alarmed? Is it normal? Well, these things are red flags. If you, the unfaithful, keep exhibiting these behaviors in your life, or if you, the betrayed, keep running into these behaviors in the life of your unfaithful, I would tell you they're cause for concern. Does it mean you shouldn't pursue restoration? No. Does it mean that something deeper is wrong? Possibly. Does it mean that you should just give up and that you should just forget it? Absolutely not. But it does mean that you should go deeper and find out why these things are here. Now, I will probably use some humor in some of these today to paint a picture, but at the end of the day, there's really nothing funny about red flags in our lives, because if we don't deal with them, they're going to continue to be toxic in our life, in our family's life, and corrupt any attempt to try and restore the relationship, as well as try and restore our own wholeness. So if these things are happening, it's time to get help. It's time to find out why. It's time to humble yourself and admit that these things are a problem. The first red flag in the life of the unfaithful is something we call tantruming. And it usually happens when the betrayed has a difficult moment, or reminders, or triggers, and the unfaithful spirals into this, oh my gosh, here we go again. We're never going to get past it. Why? We just had 2 or 3 good days. It's like there's just this, and it doesn't have to be loud. It just is this tantruming that they're not getting their way, that you're having a difficult day, that their own life is interrupted by your pain. It's like, I'm sorry, as in the mind of the betrayed, it's like, I'm sorry that I'm inconveniencing you by the pain that you caused in our life. They tantrum rather than being safe and being present and having control of their emotions and their reaction to your pain and hurt. Number 2 is stonewalling. This is common when the unfaithful just shuts down and says, nope, not going to talk about it. Now, I understand some of you unfaithful are already getting ready to type and say, what about when my betrayed is lashing out, losing their mind, screaming and yelling? I'm not stonewalling, I'm shutting down because nothing is working. I get that. That's a little different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in a healthy situation, you, the unfaithful, hit this point of internal chaos, and so you just kind of go, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. It's this huge avoidance. It just basically says, you're not being nice to me, so I'm done talking. Next is defending and deflecting. We unfaithfuls are masters at this. We will defend our behavior, defend our terrible choices, defend or excuse what we've done, instead of finding a place of humility and kind of just letting our guard down to say, honey, I don't have any answers. What I did was wicked and wretched, and I really wasn't in my right mind, but that doesn't excuse my behavior. It just means I don't have any answers yet. I don't care. Let's go into debt. Let's do whatever we can. Let's get help. Let's find expert care so we can find out why I've done this. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just saying, I'm not a therapist, I'm not an expert, I don't know, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to find out why and never do this again. But what we do as unfaithful oftentimes is we deflect. Well, if you were this, well, if you were that, yes, it's deflecting, but it's also blaming. Or it's, well, there was all this stuff and I can't be held up to this standard. We blame, we deflect, we find a way to not have to own our behavior when I've had betrayeds tell me for decades if my unfaithful would just accept it and own it and stop trying to defend it and stop trying to deflect away from the heart of the matter, it would be so much easier for me. It would be so much easier to just hit ground zero and say, okay, thank you for accepting it. Thank you for not trying to defend it. Let's go find out why and let's get help. The next red flag is shaming. We unfaithful love to shame ourselves. Sometimes we do it out of self-shame, out of self-hatred, out of the fact that our shame gets triggered, and so we hammer away, we demean and we devalue and we attack ourselves. Sometimes it's not authentic. Sometimes it's a weird form of pride where we kind of relish in, I'm so bad, I'm just a terrible person, but it's not authentic, and it's just a way to get the conversation to stop. And we kind of just use that as our go-to. I know, I'm just a piece of trash and I'm just forever a failure. But what we're doing is we're actually shaming and we're actually sending a message to the betrayed that poor us. So it spirals into self-pity. And that's a common wall that betrayeds will run into. And it only causes more damage. As I said before, if there's just one of these things, or if it's occasional, maybe it's not necessarily part of your identity or what's going on. But if you keep running into these things, if these are common things that keep happening in both of your lives, I think you have the opportunity to change the narrative and say, okay, these are red flags. This doesn't mean that you're a bad person, unfaithful. This doesn't mean that you're just a waste of space. It doesn't mean that we should throw the towel in. You know what it means? We've got some red flags. Let's accelerate the work that we're doing. Let's go find an expert. Let's go deeper. Let's do more work to find out what's really going on, because these are not just mannerisms. These are red flags. And what you tolerate, you cannot change. Maybe it's time for you, the unfaithful, to no longer tolerate these things in your life. Maybe it's time for you, the betrayed, to say, no more of this. I'm not going to live like this anymore. I hope you can find the courage to tackle these red flags.